Billionaire Harrison Blackwell discovers his maid's daughter hiding in his kitchen, stealing leftovers. And what follows isn't anger, but a decision that will change both their lives forever. In a house built on silence and wealth, a child's stomach growls louder than the ticking clocks. 10-year-old Sophie Miller hides in the shadows of a billionaire's kitchen, chasing scraps meant for the trash, because hunger doesn't follow rules. But when the man who owns everything catches the girl who owns nothing, one moment of desperation will shatter the distance between them. Behind the marble and gold lies a truth neither of them is ready to face. This isn't just a story about a maid's daughter caught with a bowl of leftovers. It's the story of how one small act of hunger fed the heart of a broken man. And before I forget, where are you watching from today? Leave a comment below. Enjoy the story. A 10-year-old girl knew that hunger was the sharpest sound in a silent house. Sophie Miller held her breath, pressing herself flat against the cold, humming metal of the industrial pantry freezer. Just one more minute, she prayed. Just let Mrs. Petrov's heavy footsteps fade down the marble hall. The kitchen in Mr. Blackwell's house was bigger than her entire apartment. It was a vast room of stainless steel, gleaming copper pots, and black granite counters that always felt cold. Sophie was small for her age, with hair the color of pale corn silk, and she knew every shadow in this room. She had mapped them out, night after night. Her mother, Anna, was a maid here. She was the one who made the floors shine so bright you could see your face in them. Tonight, her mother was upstairs, on the 3rd floor, turning down the heavy blankets in the 20 guest rooms that were never used. She would be exhausted. Her feet would be aching. Her cough, the one she tried to hide, would be worse. Sophie's stomach twisted with a familiar, hollow ache. It was 9:04 p.m. The pantry door clicked shut. Silence. Sophie counted to 60, her lips moving without a sound. Then, she slipped from her hiding place. Her bare feet made no noise on the polished stone. She moved past the giant, 6-burner stove and the empty butcher block island. Her target was the steel cart parked by the service entrance. It was the discard cart. Mrs. Petrov, the head housekeeper, was strict. All leftover food from Mr. Blackwell's solitary dinner or the staff's lunch was to be scraped into a compost bin. But the kitchen staff, led by the kind cook Maria, often forgot. They would leave half a sandwich, a few roasted potatoes, or the crust of a small tart on a plate, covered loosely with foil. They left it there for an hour, just in case Mr. Blackwell wanted a late snack. He never did. Sophie knew this. She also knew that at 9:15 p.m., Mrs. Petrov would return, inspect the cart, and then angrily scrape everything into the bin. Sophie's hands trembled. She saw it. A small bowl of macaroni and cheese, barely touched. It was from the staff lunch. Her eyes filled with tears. She loved macaroni and cheese. Beside it, 2 bread rolls, hard as rocks, but still bread. She grabbed the bowl. It was cold. She didn't care. She was about to scoop the first bite into her mouth with her fingers when a shadow fell over her. The kitchen light clicked on. Sophie froze. The bowl slipped from her numb fingers and clattered onto the floor. Yellow-orange pasta spilled across the white tile. A man stood in the doorway. He was tall, dressed not in a suit, but in a dark blue bathrobe. His hair was thick and silver, and his eyes, even shadowed, looked incredibly tired. It was Mr. Harrison Blackwell, the man who owned the house, the man who owned the company her mother worked for, the man who, her mother always said, must never, ever be disturbed. Sophie's heart hammered against her ribs. She couldn't breathe. She was caught. Harrison Blackwell stared, his mind struggling to catch up. He had lived in this house for 40 years. It was less a home and more a museum of his own life. A silent, grand place that had once been filled with the laughter of his wife, Eleanor, and their son, Robert. Now, it was just him and the staff who moved like ghosts. He suffered from insomnia. Sleep was a battle he rarely won. Tonight, the silence of the house felt louder than any noise. He had been in his study, a room lined with dark wood and books he no longer read. On his desk sat a framed photo of Eleanor. He missed her. He missed her with an ache that felt as hollow as the house itself. He had decided to do something he hadn't done in years. Go to the kitchen himself and make a cup of hot milk. He had walked down the curved staircase, his leather slippers silent on the plush carpet runner. He passed the grand ballroom, dark and empty. He passed the formal dining room, where the table was set for 12, as it was every day. though no one ever ate there. He reached the kitchen wing. He disliked this part of the house. It was Mrs. Petrov's domain. She was a stern woman, hired after Eleanor passed. She ran the house with ironclad efficiency. Harrison appreciated the efficiency. It meant he didn't have to think about it. He had pushed open the heavy kitchen door, expecting darkness. Instead, he saw a small shape, a child, hunched over the catering cart. A small, blonde girl. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. Maybe it was a ghost. A memory of his granddaughter, who lived in California and rarely visited. Then the child dropped the bowl. The sound of porcelain on stone was sharp. It was real. The girl, he realized, was terrified. She was pressed against the steel cart, her eyes wide, staring at the spilled food. She looked like a cornered animal. "You?" Harrison started. His voice was rough from disuse. "What are you doing?" Sophie couldn't speak. Her mind was screaming. "Run. Hide. Say sorry. Don't cry. Mama will be fired. We'll lose the apartment. We'll have no money for the medicine." She did the only thing she could. She dropped to her knees and began frantically, trying to scoop the spilled macaroni back into the broken bowl with her bare hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The words tore from her throat. "I'll clean it. I'll clean it right now. Please. Please don't tell Mrs. Petrov. Please, sir." Harrison watched her. He wasn't disgusted. He was confused. The girl was shaking. Her small hands were red and smeared with cheese sauce. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the mess, her small back heaving with silent sobs. He noticed her clothes. They were clean, but worn. Her pink sneakers had holes in the toes. She was not his granddaughter. His granddaughter had rooms full of toys and ponies. This child was thin. "Stop," he said. His voice was softer this time, but it still held the authority of a man used to being obeyed. Sophie froze, her hands full of cold pasta. "Who are you?" Harrison asked. She looked up, her face streaked with tears and a tiny bit of sauce. I'm Sophie, sir. Sophie Miller." "Miller?" Harrison searched his memory. Anna Miller's daughter? Anna, the quiet maid. The one with the sad eyes who always polished the silver in the library. He had seen her, of course. He nodded to her. She was diligent. Mrs. Petrov had praised her work, which was rare. But he had never known she had a child. Where was she? "Yes, sir," Sophie whispered. "Where is your mother?" "She's working," Sophie said immediately. "Upstairs. She's working very hard. She told me to stay in the staff lounge. She said to be quiet and not touch anything." "The staff lounge is on the other side of the basement," Harrison said. His mind was sharp. "You are not in the staff lounge." Sophie flinched. I was hungry." The words hung in the air. Simple. Awful. Hungry. Harrison Blackwell had negotiated billion-dollar mergers. He had faced down hostile boards. He had buried his wife. He had never, in his entire 68 years, had a child stand in his own kitchen and tell him she was hungry. "I see," he said slowly. He looked at the discarded bread rolls on the cart. He looked at the broken bowl. "This is what you were eating?" The scraps. It was going to be thrown away," Sophie said, desperate for him to understand. "Mrs. Petrov throws it all away at 9:15. I wasn't stealing. I was just waiting for the garbage. Please, Mr. Blackwell. My mama. She needs this job. She's sick. Sophie clamped her mouth shut. She had said too much. Her mother's first rule: never, ever talk about our problems. We are fine. We are grateful. She's sick." Harrison pressed, his curiosity now a sharp, painful thing. But Sophie was silent. She had retreated back into herself. She was just a small, terrified statue, kneeling in a puddle of cold food. Before Harrison could speak again, a new voice cut through the kitchen. "What is the meaning of this?" Mrs. Petrov stood in the other doorway, the one leading from the main hall. She was a tall, severe woman in a crisp black uniform. Her gray hair was pulled into a bun so tight it seemed to pull her eyes wider. She was holding a large, black trash bag. She had come to clear the cart. Her eyes took in the scene in an instant. Mr. Blackwell, in his robe, looking disturbed. The girl on her knees. The spilled food. Her face, normally pale, turned a dark, blotchy red. "You," she snapped, pointing a long finger at Sophie. "I knew it." Sophie scrambled to her feet and backed away, pressing herself against the refrigerator. "Mrs. Petrov," Harrison said, his voice a low rumble. "Mr. Blackwell, I am so sorry you had to see this," the housekeeper said, her voice shaking with rage. I have suspected for weeks that food was going missing. I thought it was one of the night porters. But it was her. She advanced on Sophie. You filthy little thief. Stealing from the hand that feeds your mother. I will have you both out of here tonight. I will call the police. Mrs. Petrov, that is enough, Harrison said. Sir, she has broken rules. She is trespassing in the main kitchen. She is stealing your food. She is a child, Harrison said. The words were flat. Cold. She is a thief, Mrs. Petrov countered. Her mother, Anna, bringing her here, letting her run wild. It is a disgrace. I will fetch Anna now. She can pack her things. You will do no such thing, Harrison commanded. Mrs. Petrov stopped. She had never heard Mr. Blackwell use that tone. Not with her. She turned, her mouth open. Sir, I am speaking with the girl, Harrison said. Go back to your office. But, Mr. Blackwell, the mess. The rules. The mess can be cleaned, Harrison said, his eyes never leaving Sophie's pale, terrified face. The rules can wait. Go. Now. Mrs. Petrov looked as if she had been slapped. Her face went pale again. She clutched the trash bag to her chest. She gave Sophie one last look, a look of pure poison. Then, without another word, she turned and marched out of the kitchen. Her rigid back was an insult. The kitchen was silent again, save for the hum of the freezer. Harrison let out a long breath. He looked at Sophie, who was still trembling. He looked at the mess on the floor. Well, he said, his voice sounding strange in the huge room. I suppose we should clean this up. He walked over to the industrial sink, pulled a clean cloth from a hook, and wet it. He walked back and knelt, wincing as his old knees popped. He knelt right on the cold floor, next to the spilled pasta. Sophie stared. The richest man she had ever heard of was on his knees, about to clean up her mess. Sir, no, she gasped. I'll do it. It's my fault. We'll do it together, Harrison said. He began wiping up the sticky sauce. He looked at her. Go on. Get the pieces. Hesitantly, Sophie knelt beside him. Together, the billionaire and the maid's daughter began picking up the broken shards of the bowl. As Sophie reached for a piece of the broken bowl, her sleeve pulled up. Harrison saw it. Her wrist was tiny, fragile as a bird's, and clutched in her other hand was something dark. A small, bronze button. It looked old. What is that? He asked, his voice gentle. Sophie quickly pulled her sleeve down, hiding her hand. It's nothing, sir. Just my lucky charm. May I see it? She hesitated. Her mother's voice was in her head. Don't bother Mr. Blackwell. Don't speak unless spoken to. But he was asking. Slowly, she opened her hand. It wasn't a button. It was a pin. Old, worn bronze. An eagle, its wings spread, its talons clutching a small flag. It was a service pin. Harrison looked closer. He recognized the design. It was a pin given to the families of decorated soldiers. His own father had one, packed away in a box. Where did you get this? He asked, his voice suddenly sharp with a new kind of interest. It was my great-uncle's, Sophie whispered. My mama's uncle. He was a soldier. A long time ago. A soldier, Harrison repeated, looking at the small, fierce-looking pin, and then at the small, hungry girl. He stood up, his knees aching. He had come down for milk. He had found a thief, a child, and a mystery. Come with me, he said. Sophie's heart leaped into her throat. Where? Not to Mrs. Petrov, he said quickly, seeing the fear in her eyes. He pointed to a small wooden table in the corner of the kitchen, where the staff sometimes ate their lunch. Sit down. Sophie did as she was told, perching on the very edge of the wooden stool. Harrison walked to the giant, walk-in refrigerator. He opened the door. The light inside spilled out, showing shelves laden with food. Cheeses, fruits, meats, bowls covered in plastic wrap. He scanned the shelves, his eyes passing over complicated French dishes. He found what he was looking for. He pulled out a large, ceramic dish. He took it to the microwave, a machine he was fairly certain he'd never used, and peered at the buttons. After a moment, he figured it out. A minute later, he placed a steaming bowl on the table in front of Sophie. It was full of macaroni and cheese. It was from his own dinner, prepared by his private chef. It was made with 3 kinds of expensive cheese. Eat, he said. It was not a request. Sophie stared at the bowl. It was hot. The cheese was bubbling. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. Sir, you're hungry. Eat. Harrison repeated. He grabbed one of the hard bread rolls from the discard cart. And this. He took a small tub of butter from the fridge and a knife. Put some butter on it. Slowly, as if she were afraid it was a trap, Sophie picked up the spoon. She took a small bite. It was hot. It was the best thing she had ever tasted. Her hunger, which had been a cold, sharp ache, suddenly roared to life. She took another bite, faster this time. Harrison watched her eat. She ate quickly, desperately, but with a strange, ingrained politeness. She didn't make a sound. She didn't spill a drop. She finished the entire bowl in less than 3 minutes. Then she ate the bread roll, crumbs falling onto her lap. When she was done, she looked up at him, her face flushed. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," Harrison said. He sat down in the chair opposite her. The small table felt like an island in the vast, silent kitchen. "Now," he said, leaning forward, "you're going to tell me everything. You're going to tell me why Anna Miller's daughter is hiding in my kitchen, eating garbage. And you're going to tell me about your mother. The truth. All of it." Sophie stared at the empty bowl. The food had warmed her from the inside out. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but it wasn't as sharp. Mr. Blackwell's eyes were not angry like Mrs. Petrov's. They were heavy, like the big, important books in his study. "If I tell you," she whispered, "will you still fire my mama?" Harrison considered this. He was a businessman. He did not make promises he couldn't keep. "I cannot decide that until I know what is happening," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "But I do not like firing good employees. Your mother is a good employee." Sophie took a shaky breath. It was the most hope she'd felt in months. "Mama is sick, sir," she began, her voice barely audible. "She tries to hide it, but she coughs all the time. At night, in our apartment, it's bad. She gets so tired, she falls asleep on the bus. Sometimes she falls asleep making dinner." "What is wrong with her?" Harrison asked. "It's her lungs," Sophie said. "From the smoke. Our old apartment building. It had a fire. A long time ago, before we came here. She got everyone out on our floor. She ran back in for Mrs. Gable's cat. She breathed in a lot of smoke." Sophie twisted her hands in her lap. "The doctor said her lungs are scarred. They don't work right. And now there's something else. A new sickness. They call it fibrosis." Harrison nodded slowly. He knew the term. It was serious. It was expensive. "She has medicine," Sophie continued, her voice gaining a little speed. "Pink pills and a blue puffer. But the doctor said she needs a treatment. A special kind. He said it costs more than a car. More than our whole apartment." She looked up, her blue eyes desperate. "We don't have that money, sir. We have no money. Mama gives all her paycheck to the hospital. But they keep sending letters. Red letters. They say they will stop the medicine if she doesn't pay. So the food," Harrison said, gesturing to the cart. We eat a lot of oatmeal," Sophie said, dropping her gaze. "And bread. Mama, she skips dinner. She says she ate at work. But I know she didn't. I hear her stomach growling at night when she thinks I'm asleep." Her shame returned, hot and sharp. "I just wanted her to have my dinner. We had one hot dog left. I told her I wasn't hungry. But then I came here, and I could smell the kitchen. I just wanted one bite. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for," Harrison said. His voice was gravel. He felt an old, unfamiliar anger rising in him. It was not directed at the child. It was directed at the red letters. At the world. He looked at the small, clenched fist in her lap. "Your great-uncle," he said, changing the subject. "The pin." Sophie's face changed. The fear and shame receded, replaced by a tiny spark of pride. She opened her hand and looked at the bronze pin. "This was Great-Uncle Michael," she said. "Mama's Uncle Mike. He was a hero. Tell me. He was in the big war. The one in the black and white pictures. Mama said he was very brave. He was a paratrooper. He jumped out of airplanes. He went to a place called Normandy." Harrison's breath caught. Normandy. He had read about it. He had funded memorials for it. "He saved his whole team," Sophie said, reciting the story she knew by heart. "They were trapped. The enemy was in a big house, and my great-uncle, he did something. He made a distraction." "A distraction?" "He ran out. He made them all look at him, so his friends could get away. He was hit," Harrison finished for her. Sophie nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Yes, he was hurt bad, but he kept going. They saved everyone. But he didn't come home." She touched the pin. "They sent this to my great-grandma. She gave it to Mama. And Mama gave it to me. She said, "This is who we are, Sophie. We are not people who run. We are people who help." She said to hold it when I was scared, to remember Uncle Mike. Harrison stared at the pin. He stared at the girl. A paratrooper. A hero who gave his life to save his team. And this was his legacy. A 10-year-old girl, hiding in a pantry, starving. So her mother, a woman who ran into a burning building for a cat, could pay for medicine. The silence in the kitchen stretched. It was no longer an empty silence. It was full of the girl's story. "Mr. Blackwell?" A sharp voice broke the quiet. Anna Miller stood in the doorway. She was pale, her light brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her maid's uniform was rumpled, and her eyes were wide with terror. "Mr. Blackwell, sir?" I, Mrs. Petrov. She just told me," she said. Anna's eyes darted from the billionaire to her daughter. She saw the empty, expensive-looking bowl on the table. She saw the breadcrumbs. She saw Sophie, who looked both terrified and, strangely, not hungry. Her face crumpled. "Oh, Sophie, what did you do?" "Anna," Harrison said, standing up. He was a tall man, and he seemed to fill the room. "Sir, I am so sorry." Anna rushed, her words tumbling over each other. "She knows the rules. She knows she is to stay in the lounge. I had to wax the floors in the East Wing, and I was so tired. I told her to read her book. Sir, please, don't fire me. Please. I will pay for whatever she ate. I'll work for free. Anna." Harrison's voice was a command. She stopped. Tears were streaming down her face. "Sophie has been explaining the situation to me," Harrison said. Anna's face went white. "What situation? The money? The sickness?" "Sir, I don't know what she told you. She's just a child. She makes up stories." "She told me about your apartment fire," Harrison said. Anna's mouth clicked shut. "She told me about your lungs. And the red letters from the hospital." Anna Miller looked as if she were about to faint. She grabbed the doorframe to steady herself. "Sir, that is my business. It is not. I would never. It is not your concern." Her voice was a mixture of desperation and a fierce, wounded pride. "You work for me," Harrison said. "You work in my home. Your daughter is hiding in my pantry because she is hungry. I believe that makes it my concern." I. Anna didn't know what to say. She was trapped. Exposed. "Mama," Sophie said, sliding off the stool. She ran to her mother and buried her face in her apron. "I'm sorry, Mama. I was so hungry. And I told him about Uncle Mike." "Oh, Sophie," Anna whispered, her hand stroking her daughter's blonde hair. She looked at Harrison, her eyes pleading. "Please, sir. She's a good girl. I'm a good worker. I'll do anything." Harrison looked at the two of them. The mother, sick and proud, trying to hold her small family together. The daughter, brave and hungry, clutching a hero's pin. He had built an empire on calculated decisions, on numbers and projections, on profit and loss. This was not a business decision. "Anna," he said, "first, you are not fired." Anna sagged against the door, a sob of pure relief escaping her. "Thank you, sir. Thank you." "Second," Harrison continued, "Sophie will not be eating leftovers again." He walked to the main kitchen phone, the one mounted on the wall. It was an internal line. He picked it up and dialed a 4-digit number. Anna and Sophie watched, confused. It rang once. "Hello," a sleepy, male voice answered. "David," Harrison said. "It's Harrison. Wake up. I'm sending a car for you." David was Harrison's personal lawyer and his fix-it man. "Sir? It's almost 10 o'clock, the voice grumbled. "I am aware," Harrison said. "I am in my kitchen with an employee and her daughter. Her daughter, by the way, is a relative of a Normandy paratrooper, and her mother is being harassed by a hospital." There was a pause on the other end. "Harassed, sir?" Red letters. "Denying treatment." "The usual. I want you to find out which hospital. I want you to call them. I don't care what time it is. I want you to handle it." "Handle it, sir?" "Pay the bill," Harrison said, his voice flat. "All of it. And find out who her doctor is. I want her to see Dr. Evans at the main clinic. Tomorrow. The best lung specialist. I will call him myself. Bill everything to my personal account." In the doorway, Anna was shaking her head, her face pale. "Sir, no. I cannot. I cannot accept that. It's too much. It's charity." Harrison put his hand over the receiver. He looked at her. "Ma'am," he said, and his voice was cold. Your great-uncle ran into enemy fire to save his men. You ran into a burning building to save a cat. It seems to me your family has a habit of helping people. Now, please, be quiet, and let someone help you." He turned back to the phone. "David, are you writing this down?" "Yes, sir," the voice said, suddenly very awake. "Consider it handled." Harrison hung up. He turned back to Anna and Sophie. Anna was crying silently, her hand over her mouth. Sophie was just staring, her eyes wide. "Now," Harrison said, feeling a strange energy he hadn't felt in years. "The sleeping arrangements." "Sir," Anna said, confused. "You can't go back to your apartment tonight. Not when you have a top-floor appointment with Dr. Evans in the morning. And Sophie is exhausted." He looked at the girl, who was swaying on her feet. "Mrs. Petrov," Harrison said, "keeps 20 guest rooms on the 3rd floor in a state of constant readiness." He looked at Anna. "Tonight, you and Sophie will be my guests." "Sir, we can't," Anna protested. "The staff, Mrs. Petrov, she will have a fit." "Mrs. Petrov," Harrison said, a very thin, very cold smile touching his lips, "works for me. I believe I am allowed to have guests in my own home. Especially," he added, his eyes landing on the bronze pin still in Sophie's hand, "the family of a hero." He walked toward the door, gesturing for them to follow. "Come, I will show you to your rooms. We will use the main staircase." Anna Miller felt like she was floating. She clutched Sophie's hand so tightly her knuckles were white. Mr. Blackwell was leading them out of the kitchen, not through the swinging service door they always used, but through the main door, into the grand hallway. The house was different at night. Silent. It felt less like a home and more like a sleeping museum. Dark, heavy-framed paintings stared down at them. The eyes of Harrison Blackwell's ancestors followed the small, strange procession, the billionaire in his robe, the maid in her rumpled uniform, and the child in her worn-out sneakers. Sophie's feet sank into the plush, dark blue carpet. It was softer than any bed she'd ever slept on. She wanted to take off her shoes. It felt rude to walk on it. Anna, however, felt only ice-cold terror. This was forbidden. She was staff. She was kitchen staff, the lowest rung. She was not allowed in the main halls unless she was cleaning. She was certainly not allowed on the main staircase. Mr. Blackwell headed straight for it. The staircase was a massive, curving sculpture of dark cherry wood. It swept upward into the shadows of the 2nd floor. "Sir," Anna whispered, her voice hoarse. She tugged slightly on his robe. We can use the back stairs. The staff stairs. It is better." Harrison stopped. He looked back at her. His face was unreadable in the dim light of the hall. "The staff stairs are for staff, Anna," he said simply. "Tonight, you are guests." He turned and continued climbing. Anna's heart hammered. Each step on the carpeted stair was a betrayal of the rules. Mrs. Petrov's rules. The rules that kept her employed. She could hear the housekeeper's voice in her head. "You are not family. You are help. Remember your place." She pulled Sophie closer. Sophie was just looking up, her mouth open in a small O, staring at the giant crystal chandelier that hung, dark and heavy, 2 stories above them. They reached the 2nd-floor landing. The hallway stretched before them, lined with closed doors. Harrison's rooms were in the west wing. The guest rooms were in the east wing. As they turned toward the east wing, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Mrs. Petrov. She stood like a statue, her hands clasped in front of her. She was no longer red-faced and angry. She was pale, cold, and controlled. Her eyes were not on Mr. Blackwell. They were on Anna. It was a look of such pure, icy contempt that Anna flinched. "Mr. Blackwell," Mrs. Petrov said, her voice quiet but sharp as a needle. "It is very late. I was just doing my final rounds." "As was I, Mrs. Petrov," Harrison said. His voice was casual. "Thank you. You may go to bed." The housekeeper did not move. Her eyes slid to Sophie, who was hiding behind Anna's legs. "What are you doing, sir? With them?" The word "them" hung in the air, filled with disgust. "I am showing my guests to their room," Harrison said. He gestured down the hall. "The blue room, I think. It has a good view of the gardens." Mrs. Petrov's mask of control finally cracked. A small, disbelieving hiss of air escaped her. "Guests? Sir, she is a maid. And the child is a thief." Anna's knees buckled. "Mrs. Petrov, please," she begged. "It was a mistake. Sophie, she was stealing food, Anna." Mrs. Petrov snapped. Do not deny it. I caught her. And you knew. You let this happen. In this house. That is enough, Harrison said. His voice was low, but it cut through the housekeeper's anger like a razor. Mrs. Petrov turned to him. Sir, I must protest. It is my job to protect this house. To maintain standards. If you allow this, it sets a terrible example for the other staff. It breaks every rule. She must be dismissed. For theft. For trespassing. Harrison took one step toward her. He was taller than her. He had been quiet for many years, letting her run his life. But he was not a weak man. He had built an empire. Mrs. Petrov, he realized, had forgotten who she worked for. I am aware of the rules, Mrs. Petrov, he said, his voice dangerously soft. But perhaps you are not aware of the full situation. This is Anna Miller. And her daughter, Sophie. I know who she is, sir. But you do not know who her family is, Harrison continued. This is the grandniece of Michael Kopech. Mrs. Petrov frowned. The name meant nothing to her. So, Michael Kopech was a paratrooper with the 101st Airborne, Harrison said, his voice ringing with a new authority. He jumped into Normandy. He was killed in action near Corinthon, saving his entire squad from an ambush. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. Posthumously, Mrs. Petrov's mouth opened slightly. His pin, Harrison said, nodding toward Sophie, who was clutching it in her pocket, is in this house. The family of a genuine American hero is in this house. And you call them thieves. You want to throw them out, in the middle of the night, because the child was hungry. He let the words sink in. The silence in the hallway was heavy, suffocating. Harrison finished, find that unacceptable. Do you? Mrs. Petrov's pale face had gone chalk white. She was a woman who valued rules and appearances, and she had just been put on the wrong side of patriotism, heroism, and the owner of the house, all at once. She was beaten. She knew it. No, sir, she whispered. Good, Harrison said. Now, Anna and Sophie are my personal guests. They are to be treated as such. They will be staying in the blue room. I trust you will ensure they have everything they need. Toiletries, fresh clothes, breakfast in the morning. Yes, sir, Mrs. Petrov said. The words tasted like ash in her mouth. Excellent. Good night, Mrs. Petrov. Harrison turned his back on her. He did not wait for her to leave. He walked to the end of the hall and pushed open a white door. Anna. Sophie. In here. Anna, shaking, pulled Sophie past the frozen, humiliated housekeeper. They slipped into the room, and Harrison followed, closing the door firmly behind them. The room was enormous. It was painted a soft, pale blue. A massive bed, piled high with white pillows and a thick comforter, sat in the middle. A crystal lamp glowed on a bedside table. On the other side of the room, there was a small sofa and a fireplace. Sophie let go of her mother's hand. She walked, as if in a dream, to the bed. She reached out one small finger and touched the comforter. It was, she thought, like touching a cloud. Mama, she whispered. Look. Anna stood just inside the door, wringing her hands. Sir, Mr. Blackwell, this is too much. This is a room for kings. This is a room for guests, Harrison said. He walked over to a closet and opened it. My granddaughter leaves clothes here. They may be too large for Sophie, but they will be warm. Pajamas are in the dresser. The bathroom is through there. He pointed to another door. He then walked to the small desk by the window. He picked up the telephone. This phone will ring at 8:00 in the morning, he said, looking at Anna. It will be my lawyer, David. He will confirm the time of your appointment with Dr. Evans. My personal driver, Ben, will take you there and bring you back. Anna was trying to process the words. Dr. Evans. My driver. It was a different language. She stammered. Sir, how can I ever pay you for this? Harrison looked at her. Her face was thin and exhausted. Her eyes were red from crying. But she was proud. He saw the same pride he'd heard in Sophie's story. The pride of people who run toward trouble, not away from it. You will not pay me, Anna, he said. This is not a transaction. This is correcting an error. A man like Michael Kopech's great niece should not be in medical debt. Not in my country. And certainly not in my house. He turned to Sophie, who was now sitting on the edge of the bed, bouncing slightly. You, he said, and his voice was almost gruff. Get some sleep. You look tired. He walked to the door. Mr. Blackwell? Sophie called out. He stopped, his hand on the knob. Thank you for the macaroni, she said. A small, strange feeling moved in Harrison's chest. It felt like a rusty gate creaking open. It might have been a smile. You are welcome, Sophie, he said. Good night. He closed the door, leaving them alone. For a full minute, Anna and Sophie just stood in the silent, beautiful room. The only sound was the muffled rattle of Anna's breathing. Then, Sophie slid off the bed and ran to the bathroom. Mama, come see. The tub is big enough for a boat. Anna walked slowly, cautiously, into the room. She sat on the edge of the giant, soft bed. She looked at her hands, red and raw from cleaning chemicals. She looked at the fine, silk wallpaper. She had been so afraid of being fired, so afraid of losing the little they had. Now, in one night, everything had changed. She felt like she was in a fairy tale, but she also knew that Mrs. Petrov was still out there. The housekeeper was not a kind woman. She had been humiliated. She would not forget. Mama, are you okay? Sophie asked, coming out of the bathroom. She was holding a tiny, leaf-shaped bar of soap. It smells like flowers. Anna looked at her daughter. Her face was no longer pale with hunger. Her eyes were bright with wonder. This was real. This one night was real. Yes, sweetie, Anna whispered, pulling Sophie into a hug. I think we're going to be okay. She found the pajamas in the dresser. They were soft, flannel pajamas with small, pink roses on them. They were far too big for Sophie, but she put them on, rolling up the sleeves and pant legs. Anna just sat in her uniform. She couldn't bring herself to undress. She couldn't bring herself to believe she was allowed to sleep in that bed. Sophie climbed under the heavy comforter. She sighed, a deep, contented sound. It's so warm, Mama. Within 30 seconds, she was fast asleep. Anna sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, watching her daughter. She watched the peaceful rise and fall of her chest. For the first time in months, Sophie was not sleeping with her coat on for warmth. Anna finally lay down, on top of the covers, still in her uniform. She listened to the profound, deep silence of the wealthy house. It was a silence that meant safety, warmth, fullness. She coughed, a dry, painful hack that shook her body. But tonight, for the first time, the cough didn't fill her with despair. It was just a cough. And tomorrow, a doctor would listen to it. Down the hall, Harrison Blackwell was not in his bed. He was in his study, sitting in his leather chair, a glass of water in his hand. He looked at the photo of his wife, Eleanor. You would have liked them, Eleanor, he said to the empty room. They have spirit. Something this house has been missing for a very long time. He thought of the small, brave girl. He thought of the worn, bronze pin. He thought of the mother, proud and terrified. Then he thought of Mrs. Petrov, her cold, cruel eyes, her rigid obsession with rules. He had allowed that. He had allowed his home to become a place where a child would rather starve than ask for help. He had been asleep for 10 years, he realized. Ever since Eleanor died, he had been a ghost in his own life. He picked up his phone. He did not call his lawyer. He called the head of his corporate security. George, he said, his voice awake and sharp. I have a situation at my home. I need you to look into one of my staff. A Mrs. Petrov. Yes, the head housekeeper. I want a full report. Finances. Background. Everything. I suspect irregularities. He hung up the phone. He looked out the window at the dark, sprawling gardens. No more, he said to the darkness. No more. The first light of morning was gray and uncertain. Anna Miller woke with a jolt. For a moment, she was completely lost. Her neck was stiff. She was in her uniform. She was sitting in a chair, but her feet were propped up on the softest mattress she had ever felt. Then it all came rushing back. Mr. Blackwell. The kitchen. The spilled pasta. The blue room. She looked at the bed. Sophie was buried in the exact center of the mountain of pillows and comforters. Only a small patch of her blonde hair was visible. She was breathing deeply, her face peaceful and unworried. She was warm. She was safe. Anna felt a pang of guilt. She had been so exhausted, she had sat in the chair by the bed just to watch Sophie sleep for a minute. She had fallen asleep herself. She stood up, her joints aching. The room was silent. She looked around. It was real. The silk wallpaper, the heavy curtains, the crystal lamp. It was all real. A new kind of fear settled in. What happened now? What did the morning bring? Had Mr. Blackwell changed his mind? Was Mrs. Petrov downstairs, sharpening her knives, waiting for them? Just as the thought crossed her mind, a soft, Electronic beep came from the desk. It made Anna jump. It beeped again. The telephone. She tiptoed over and picked it up, her hand trembling. "Hello," she whispered. "Mrs. Miller?" "Anna Miller." The voice was male, professional, and awake. "Yes? This is she. Good morning. My name is David Thorne. I am Mr. Harrison Blackwell's personal counsel." Anna's blood ran cold. "Counsel? Lawyer?" It sounded serious. Is something wrong?" "Not at all, Mrs. Miller," the voice said, and it was kind. "I'm just calling to confirm your schedule. Mr. Blackwell has arranged an appointment for you this morning with Dr. Robert Evans at the Blackwell Mason Clinic. The appointment is at 9:30 a.m. A car will be waiting for you and your daughter at the front entrance at 9 a.m. Anna tried to write this down in her head. The Blackwell Mason Clinic? But I can't. "Mrs. Miller," David said gently. "Please, do not worry about a single thing. All costs for the consultation and any subsequent treatments are being handled by Mr. Blackwell's family office. Your only concern is to be at the front door at 9. But my daughter, Sophie is, of course, welcome to join you. Dr. Evans's office is very comfortable." "Thank you," Anna whispered. "Thank you, sir. You are very welcome. Have a good day, Mrs. Miller." The line clicked. Anna hung up the phone. She stared at it. A car. At the front entrance. There was a soft knock at the door. Anna froze. Her heart leaped into her throat. It was Mrs. Petrov. It had to be. She had come to throw them out. Who is it?" Anna called, her voice shaking. "It's just Maria, ma'am," a young voice replied. Anna frowned. "Maria? The cook who left the food out?" "Ma'am." Anna opened the door a tiny crack. A young woman in a crisp, black and white uniform stood there, pushing a silver cart. It was not Maria the cook. It was a different Maria, one of the housemaids. She looked about 19, and her eyes were wide and nervous. "Good morning, ma'am," the girl whispered. "Mr. Blackwell. He sent this up for you and the young lady." She pushed the cart into the room. It was covered in silver domes. I don't understand," Anna said. The girl lifted one of the domes. Underneath was a plate of fluffy scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast. Another held a bowl of bright red strawberries. There was a pot of coffee, a small pitcher of orange juice, and a cup of hot chocolate. "Mr. Blackwell," the maid said, her eyes darting around. "He called the kitchen himself. At 7. Mrs. Petrov." She was not happy. The girl gave Anna a very small, very fast smile. "He said you were to have whatever you wanted." "Oh," Anna said. It was all she could manage. "Sophie." Anna walked to the bed and shook her daughter's shoulder. "Sophie, wake up." Sophie groaned and burrowed deeper. "No, Mama. As cold. Sophie, you have to see this." Slowly, Sophie sat up. Her hair was a tangled mess. She rubbed her eyes. She looked at the cart. Her eyes went wide. "Mama," she whispered. "Are we in heaven?" "Close," Anna said, a shaky laugh escaping her. "It's breakfast." Sophie scrambled out of the bed, her too long pajama legs tripping her up. She ran to the cart and just stared. "Hot chocolate." "Eat, sweetie," Anna said, her throat tight. "Eat fast. We have to be ready. A car is coming." At 9 a.m. on the dot, Anna, dressed in her one good pair of slacks and a clean blouse she'd quickly washed in the sink, walked out of the elevator into the main foyer. Sophie, clutching her Grey-Tunkle's pin, held her hand. The foyer was a vast expanse of black and white marble. Mrs. Petrov was there. She was standing by the front desk, sorting mail. She did not look up. She did not acknowledge them. She simply, pointedly, ignored them. Her rigid back was a wall of hate. Anna's courage faltered. She felt small again. She felt like a fraud. But then, the large, oak front doors opened. A man in a black suit and driver's cap stood there. "Mrs. Miller," he said, his voice respectful. "The car is ready for you." Anna took a deep breath. She looked at Mrs. Petrov's back. She squeezed Sophie's hand. "We are not people who run." "Thank you," she said, her voice clear. She walked past the housekeeper, past the grand portraits, and out into the bright, cold morning. The Blackwell Mason Clinic was not a clinic. It was a glass and steel building that looked more like a modern art museum. They were not asked to wait. They were not given clipboards. They were greeted by a woman at the front desk. "Mrs. Miller, we have been expecting you. Dr. Evans is ready." They were taken to a large, quiet office. A kind-faced man with silver hair and glasses stood to greet them. Anna, I'm Robert Evans. It's a pleasure to meet you. He shook her hand. And then, to Anna's shock, Mr. Blackwell was there. He was sitting in a chair in the corner, dressed in a sharp, dark gray suit. He had not just sent them. He had come. Sir, Anna stammered. You are here. Of course, Harrison said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I wanted to hear what Robert had to say. This is my daughter, Sophie, he added, as if introducing a visiting relative. Sophie, who had been hiding behind Anna, gave a small wave. For the next hour, Anna was examined. Dr. Evans was kind, patient, and incredibly thorough. He took new x-rays. He ran breathing tests. He looked at the charts from Anna's old hospital, which were already sitting on his desk. Finally, he sat them all down. Well, Anna, he said, the good news is, you are a very strong woman. The bad news is, your lungs have taken a serious beating. The smoke inhalation, it caused significant scarring. And this new infection, you have pulmonary fibrosis. It's advanced. Anna's hand flew to her mouth. She had known. But hearing it, in this clean, expensive room, made it final. But, Dr. Evans said, holding up a hand, it is not a hopeless situation. The clinic you were at, they were not wrong about the new treatment. It's a specialized drug, combined with intensive respiratory therapy. It is very, very effective at stopping the scarring. In some cases, even reversing it. The cost, Anna whispered, her eyes filling with tears. The cost, Mr. Blackwell said, speaking for the first time, is not a factor. It is not to be discussed. It is not your concern. He turned to the doctor. Robert, what does she need? She needs to start the therapy immediately, Dr. Evans said. Today, and she needs to rest. Her body is exhausted. She cannot be working. She cannot be under stress. She will not be, Harrison said. He stood up. Anna, your employment at my home is changing. As of this moment, you are on indefinite, fully paid medical leave. Your only job is to get well. This man, he said, clapping Dr. Evans on the shoulder, is the best. You will listen to everything he says. Is that understood? Anna looked from the doctor to the billionaire. She was overwhelmed. A year of terror, of red letters, of skipping meals, it was all collapsing. She couldn't speak. She just nodded, silent tears streaming down her face. Good, Harrison said. Now, Sophie and I will go get what do children eat? A muffin? We will go get a muffin in the cafeteria. The nurse will be in to get you started, Anna. He put a gentle hand on Sophie's shoulder. Come, Sophie. Let's let your mother get to work. Back at the house, hours later, Harrison sat in his study. The sun was setting. Anna was home, resting in the blue room after her first treatment. Sophie was asleep on the sofa in Harrison's study, clutching her pen. There was a knock. Come in. His head of security, George, entered. He was a tall, no-nonsense man. He held a thin, blue folder. You were right to ask, sir, George said, his voice low. I've only been digging for a few hours. This is just the start. But it's bad. Harrison motioned to the chair. Tell me. Mrs. Petrov, George said, is not just a tyrant. She's a thief. He opened the folder. I started with the household accounts, like you asked. The vendors. She has been systematically overordering for years. Food, linens, cleaning supplies. Tens of thousands of dollars a month. Where does it go? Harrison asked, his voice cold. It doesn't. The orders are faked. She approves the invoices, the house pays them, and the money goes into an account for a shell company. Prestige Home Solutions. I traced the account. It's registered to her. Harrison's knuckles were white as he gripped the arms of his chair. All these years. While he grieved. While he sat in this room, a ghost. She had been robbing him. There's more, George said. The staff overtime. She's been padding it. Adding hours for part-time staff who don't know any better than skimming the difference. She bullies them. Threatens to fire them if they question her. Anna Miller. She was a prime target. No husband, a sick child. She knew Anna would never complain. The rage that filled Harrison was cold and pure. It wasn't about the money. He had more money than he could spend. It was the insult. The cruelty. She had turned his home into a place of fear. She had let a child starve to protect her own tiny, sordid empire. George, Harrison said, his voice flat. Send her to me. Now. Sir. Do not let her collect her things. Do not let her make a phone call. Just bring her to me. Yes, sir. 5 minutes later, Mrs. Petrov entered the study. She looked flustered. She had clearly been interrupted. Sir, this is highly irregular. Your man. Sit down, Harrison said. She sat, her back rigid. Sir, I must tell you, the staff is in an uproar. Your decision to house the Millers, it is causing chaos. Maria, the new maid, is talking about breakfast trays. It is a complete breakdown of the account for Prestige Home Solutions, Harrison said. Mrs. Petrov's words stopped. Her mouth hung open. All the blood drained from her face. I don't know what you mean, sir. Harrison slid the folder across the desk. It's all in there, Mrs. Petrov. The fake invoices. The shell company. The padded overtime. The theft. The housekeeper looked at the folder as if it were a snake. She began to tremble. Sir, it's a misunderstanding, she stammered, her voice high and thin. The cost of living, you have so much. I have given you 10 years of my life. I ran this house. You ran it into the ground, Harrison said, his voice a low growl. You built a tiny, pathetic kingdom on theft, and you ruled it with fear. You bullied a sick woman. You allowed a 10-year-old child to eat from a garbage cart. He stood up, towering over her. You are lucky I am not calling the police. You are lucky that I just want you gone. He pointed to a set of papers on his desk. This is a confession and a repayment agreement. You will sign it. Every penny you stole will be paid back from your bank accounts and your pension. George will then escort you to your car. You will take your purse. Nothing else. The rest of your things will be burned. Sir, please, she begged, tears of panic in her eyes. My reputation. Where will I go? Get out. The roar echoed in the study. Sophie stirred on the sofa, but didn't wake. Mrs. Petrov, broken, snatched the papers and a pen. She signed, her hand shaking. George stepped forward, took her arm, and pulled her from the chair. Wait, Harrison said. They stopped. You will give Anna Miller, Harrison said, a full, written apology. And you will apologize to the rest of the staff. George will watch you write it. Yes, sir, she whimpered. He watched her get dragged out. He sat down. The house was finally, truly, silent. 1 month later, the house was different. The heavy drapes were pulled back, letting in the winter light. There were flowers in the vases. The staff, all given a raise and a bonus, moved with a new lightness. Anna Miller, her lungs clear, her face full, walked the halls. She held a clipboard. She was the new head of household. Harrison had been blunt. I don't need a jailer, Anna. I need a host. I need someone who knows what kindness is. The accountants will teach you the books. You will teach this house how to be a home again. She had been terrified, but she had agreed. She found Harrison on the back terrace, reading the newspaper. Sophie was there, too. She was sitting on the stone ground, her tongue stuck out in concentration, polishing her great-uncle's bronze pin. Mr. Blackwell? Anna said. Harrison, he corrected her. He had insisted. Harrison, she said, smiling. The new curtains have arrived for the East Wing, and the chef wants to know if you and Sophie will be joining him for dinner. We would be delighted, Harrison said. Sophie ran up, holding the pin. It gleamed in the light. Look, it's all shiny, like new. Harrison took the pin. He looked at the eagle, wings spread. He looked at the small, brave girl who had been so hungry. He looked at her mother, who was no longer sick and afraid. Your great-uncle, Harrison said, his voice thick, would be so proud of you, Sophie. Mama says I'm brave like him, Sophie said. You are, Harrison said, handing the pin back. He looked at Anna, and then at the house that was finally coming back to life. You both are. You saved us. Sophie beamed, then ran off to chase a squirrel. Anna sat on the bench next to Harrison. They watched the little girl run, her blonde hair flying. The sound of her laughter was the loudest thing in the garden. And for the first time in a very long time, it felt exactly right. And that's where we'll end the story for now. Whenever I share one of these, I hope it gives you a chance to step out of the everyday and just drift for a bit. I'd love to know what you were doing while listening. Maybe relaxing after work, on a late-night drive, or just winding down. Drop a line in the comments. I really do read them all. And if you want to make sure we cross paths again, hitting like and subscribing makes a huge difference. We are always trying to improve our stories, so feel free to also drop your feedback in the comment section below. Thanks for spending this time with me.